We live inside the feed. Swipe, refresh, repeat. If information is like water, we are drowning. So here's a harder question than it sounds. In 2025, do books still matter? Not content, not snippets, not summaries, books. The answer isn't nostalgic, it's neurological, philosophical, and historical. Books don't just pass time, they shape minds, communities, and even laws. Books, they say, are medicine. Philosopher Simone Weil called attention the rarest and purest form of generosity. Books are attention's training ground. Neuroscientist literacy scholar Marianne Wolf argues that digital culture nudges us towards skim reading, which erodes the patience for ambiguity and slows our capacity for deep empathy. In fast media, we glance, but in books, we can dwell. Dwelling is where nuance lives, the kind of nuance required for ethics, history, and love. But why does this matter? Deep reading builds a dialogue in your head. A novel like Marilynne Robinson's Gilead invites you to sit with a dying pastor's letters to his son, small town memories that open into theology, forgiveness, and American history. In Katsuo Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day, the book forces you to inhabit dignified self-deception until it cracks. These aren't just plots, they're slow laboratories for perspective taking, places where we test ideas without anyone being hurt. Fiction actually builds empathy, and we can measure it. Psychology actually gives us a name for getting lost in a story. It's called narrative transportation. When we're transported, beliefs and attitudes can shift because we have simulated another life from the inside. Experiments show that after reading literary fiction, work that foregrounds complex characters, people perform better on tests of theory of mind, the ability to infer others' emotions and intentions. There are many literary examples that humanize the headlines. For example, in Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, the author turns immigration policy into hair-braiding chairs, visa lines, and long-distance love, messy, contradictory, and human. In Pachinko, Min-ji Lin reframes geopolitics, colonialism, discrimination through one Korean family's century of choices. In Beloved, Toni Morrison relocates the debate over slavery from the abstract to the visceral, history as haunt, grief as a living character. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara is polarizing, but for many readers, it built a vocabulary for trauma, caretaking, and chosen family when nothing else would. Fiction doesn't replace the news, it contextualizes it, restoring texture where headlines flatten. Books are, and always have been, engines of social change. They are catalysts for transformation. They distill complex moral, political, and social dilemma into stories that grip us, that haunt us, and ultimately force us to think differently about our own world. Consider Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, a novel often credited with galvanizing abolitionist sentiment in 19th century America. Abraham Lincoln reportedly greeted Stowe as the little woman who wrote the book that started the Great War. Fiction here was not mere entertainment, it was a spark for revolution. Or think of George Orwell's 1984, which gave us the very language of Big Brother, doublethink, and thought crime to critique authoritarianism. Without it, how would we so vividly frame conversation about surveillance and truth in today's digital age? Books supply us with metaphors and frameworks that enter public consciousness, shaping how we protest, legislate, and imagine better societies. In 1962, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring translated dispersed scientific findings into a narrative ordinary citizens could grasp. Birds falling silent, poisons moving up the food chain. Public pressure followed. A decade later, the United States banned DDT for agricultural use and built the regulatory muscle that would become the modern environmental movement. These cases show something profound. Books assemble attention, plus evidence, plus story, into a civic catalyst. Dystopias aren't predictions, they're diagnostics. 1984 by George Orwell externalizes our fears about surveillance and language manipulation. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood stages theocratic control to interrogate gender, law, and power. Read today, they're not just about the future, they're forensic kits for the present. In contemporary fiction, Emily St. John Mandel's Station 11 makes a post-pandemic world unexpectedly tender, art and memory as survival. Colson Whitehead's The Nickel Boys reframes institutional abuse through two boys' friendship. The systemic becomes intimate and unforgettable. Books do what short form can't. They hold contradictions without resolving them on a deadline. Pleasure, solace, and escape, and why that isn't trivial. Escapism isn't cowardice, it's rehearsal. The Hobbit teaches friendship and courage under the guise of maps and mushrooms. Ursula K. Le Guin's A Wizard of Earthsea treats adolescence as a mythic apprenticeship in naming your shadow. And Elif Boutman's The Idiot turns first love awkwardness into anthropology. Daphne de Maurier's Rebecca is a candlelit study of identity and jealousy, somehow both cozy and chilling. These books soothe not because they're simple, but because they safely intensify life, adventure, fear, romance, inside boundaries we can control, one page at a time. But what about the format? Do formats matter? Reading is resilient. In the United States, overall, book reading has stayed broadly stable for a decade, and print remains the most popular format, even as ebooks and audiobooks grow. This isn't nostalgia, it's behaviour. But what about the overall comprehension? Well, research is mixed. A well-cited meta-analysis finds a small advantage for paper, especially under time pressure and for longer inferential tasks. But other reviews in specific educational domains find little to no difference when tasks and time are controlled. The takeaway? Context and how we read, distraction, annotation, purpose matter more than tribal format wars. And audiobooks? For many purposes, they can engage similar cognitive pathways. Attention and access are the bigger variables. Basically, the ancient technology here isn't paper, it's the story. Philosophically, books protect two endangered habitats: silence and interiority. A book lets you test beliefs without broadcasting them. It gives you a rehearsal room for selfhood. That's priceless in a performative economy. Psychologically, books expand the range of feelings you can name and therefore navigate. After Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, grief and immigrant masculinity become legible, survivable. After Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet, historical plague becomes a family's hard-edged tenderness, not a statistic. Culturally, books are long memory. They slow down experiences that would otherwise be consumed and forgotten. You don't just finish Homer or Shakespeare or Murasaki, you carry them like tools. The digital age doesn't make books obsolete, it makes them necessary. When everything else is optimized for speed, books optimize for depth. When the feed fragments us, books give us continuity. When the world feels like noise, books teach us attention. And from attention, empathy, from empathy, action. Yes, books still matter. Not as relics, but as one of the last great technologies for freedom. In a world of distraction and information at our fingertips, a book allows us to sit and think and explore.